Welcome again to the Triathlon rules course. Now we will be seeing module number 9, run. And again, I have Duncan Huff with me. Thank you, Duncan, for being with us today.
Thank you.
What can you tell us about the run course?
So again, the run course, it needs to be wheelchair accessible, for all stages. It needs to be clear, so no steps, we must eliminate all those. Ramps, again, if we have to sort of go over curbs, etc. And again, trail type run courses really aren't suitable for our para athletes. So we need to try and make sure it's as much as possible on paved tarmac surface, or at least a solid surface. It needs to be wide enough to allow the athletes to be able to pass each other, especially on the wheelchair categories. And we really need to avoid obstacles above head level, because again, with a number of our athletes who are visually impaired, we've got to protect everybody's safety.
Regarding specific athletes with lower limb impairment, limb deficiencies, they are allowed to use prosthetic legs on that limb to ensure there's a symmetrical movement and symmetrical flow for the running gait. The approval of such devices obviously goes through classification process, or if it's done in advance, it may have to be consulted with the classification advisory group seeking approval. But again, the so-called running blades that we are quite familiar to all of us are only allowed as long as they are mounted on a prosthetic leg. There cannot be any blades mounted on any other kind of device or orthotic, etc. More about the run course.
Yeah, so going back to our run course, again, none of the run courses should have a maximum grading to 5%. At its steepest section, last thing we want is our wheelchairs tipping over. We need to consider that the wheelchair category is draft legal, and WC wheelchair athletes should be using a racing wheelchair during the run and not a normal day chair.
As what you see in the pictures, but Duncan will give you more specs on that. So is this allowed based on what we just discussed, Duncan?
So as we said earlier on, yes, it's draft legal, so they are allowed to do that.
So now to the wheelchair specifications, the racing wheelchair.
So our racing wheelchair, it needs 2 large wheels at the back and 1 small wheel, and there should be a brake on the front wheel. No part of the body may extend beyond the hub on the front wheel, and it should be inside of the hubs of the 2 rear wheels. Maximum height for clearance is 50 centimeters. And as regards the wheels, we talked about the 2 large wheels. The maximum inflated diameter should be 70 centimeters on the large rear wheels. And for the smaller front wheel, it should not exceed more than 50 centimeters inflated. Again, all the athletes are allowed 1 hand rim and 1 hand rim only along each large wheel. And there are no mechanical gears, levers that propel the chair allowed. So, as we said, it should only be hand-operated. Mechanical steering devices are allowed. Para athletes, they must be able to turn the front wheels themselves left and right. And one of the really important things we need to do is to ensure that there's enough support, bracing, etc., to prevent the athlete's legs from dragging or making contact with the ground during the event. They should wear an approved bike helmet. All the athletes should already have the helmet on anyway, because they'll have come straight out from the bike course. But in the case of a duathlon, we need to make sure that they are wearing a bike helmet. And once attempting to overtake another para triathlete, it's the responsibility of the athlete doing the overtaking to ensure there's enough clearance for them to be able to overtake before cutting across. Once the para triathlete has overtaken, then the responsibility belongs to the person behind to make sure that they can pass clearly and safely.
So for the PTWC athletes, we actually have a specific dedicated wheel station on the run. The most convenient location, obviously, it will depend on the layout of the course and has to be decided by the technical delegate in advance and shown on the maps. But it is used, so we have to make sure that there's a provision for PTWC athletes on the run segment. There is a new rule in 2023 regarding the outside assistance that can be provided. it affects several of our paratriathletes, and basically it's about, in the case of any incident, they can be provided assistance in order to get back into their hand bike or racing wheelchair. But however, mechanical issues still need to be repaired by the athlete without external assistance, unless they would have a personal handler approved, as we have discussed before. But again, this assistance may be only provided by technical officials, event personnel, or another athlete in the same race.
So again, our athletes for the PTVIs, they're tethered during the run. There are a number of tethers the athlete can use. There can be an elbow lead during the run. However, the important bit is they cannot push, pull, or otherwise propel the athletes in order to gain any advantage. So if an athlete trips, slips, etc., then obviously a guide may assist, but it's important that no assistance provides anybody with any advantage moving forward. So how are our PTVI athletes tethered? So here we have a couple of options. So we see a couple of athletes here who are tethered at the waist. As you can see, yep, they're close within each other. The tethers are relaxed, and yeah, they're clearly not assisting. Here we have a couple of options of athletes who are actually tethered at the wrist and running together. And again, two athletes here from Hungary, exactly the same. Yeah, good form, tethers relaxed. And here we have them using the hand guide. So they'll sit there holding the hand tethers. And another picture here showing the hand tether in action.
As you can see, like, okay, on the picture on the left, you can see that there's some tension in that tether, but what you would have to see is how the arms are behaving, if they're swinging naturally, or if the guide would be, completely pulling the athlete. But in general, as Duncan said, we need to make sure that they keep within the half a meter distance, and there's a swift movement between both athlete and guide without a clear pulling and so on.
Yeah, and you make a good point there. If the athlete's swinging their arms again with each other in unison, then it's fine. If the athlete's holding the arm there and dragging it along, it's pretty clear that someone's been dragged. As we mentioned in one of the earlier seminars with the PTVI1 category, they need to wear blackout glasses all the way through the run. Now, there will be a number of VI free leading zones, and these need to be ensured that they're included in the athlete's guide. And this is where the guide can actually guide the athlete through, yep, and support. So these are clearly marked. Here we see some signage, yep, very much the same as we have with the aid stations, with the start of the VI free leading zone and the end of the VI free leading zone.
In these areas, Duncan, normally they are declared as such free leading zones because they have some kind of considered hazard or challenge to athletes that are maybe completely blinded, etc., right?
It could be a sharp corner, it could be a change of surface, anything along those lines, something which is sort of sticking out, which could be of danger to the athlete. So we want to make sure that we protect the athlete's well-being at all times.
Is this part, for instance, of a run course, if this would be the surface, considered a free leading zone for visually impaired athletes?
And this is a classic example. Yeah, we've got a clear change of surface here with a couple of holes and all the rest of it. So this is where we want to protect the athlete, and we make sure we guide them safely through this particular area.
So what kind of action you will see is basically maybe the guide grabbing the athlete by the arm in order to ensure that even if they trip, they're not going to fall because there's an unexpected change of surface, etc. And again, that's where we don't have any kind of penalty towards the behavior, because they are potentially overcoming a challenge or a potential hazard. Regarding aid stations, this is something that needs to be planned very carefully, especially when you have, maybe extreme conditions or very hot weather, because the way a guide can ensure that their athlete is getting well hydrated or cooling off may need additional space in order to happen, as they're not stopping for this, but they are moving along. And the guide then has to procure for him or for herself, the same kind of hydration or cooling off. So basically what you can see here in the picture on the right is a long enough space in which this can happen, and maybe if it can be on both sides, even better, because we never know on which side the guide will be running from. But anyhow, it has to allow for an operation that will be more than a few seconds. So make sure that you plan with the spaces that are long enough and tables that are also scattered and spread around enough. On this picture on the left, for instance, this was in Tokyo. For the hosing, you can see that it starts, way in advance of the actual aid station. And on the picture on the right, also, this was Tokyo, a very long set of tables to ensure that nobody misses out on the possibility of capturing water bottles, etc. What about penalties, Duncan?
So as regards our penalties, we mentioned earlier on about a penalty for missing the briefing. So that will be served in transition 1, as would any penalty served or committed during the start of the swim. During the swim section and transition 1, any penalty occurs there will be served in the run penalty box. On the bike, any penalty served will be done in the bike penalty box, and it should be at the next bike penalty box, not any old bike penalty box. And also on T2 and the run, we serve those at the run penalty box. Now, obviously, sometimes they may have run past the penalty box and commit an offence. So then in those instances, the penalty will be served on the spot.
So here we have some examples. Can you tell us what's wrong, or is it okay in each and one of these pictures, Duncan, please?
Okay. So as we can see here, clearly there's a lot of tension, where before with the previous pictures, the tension was relaxed. Here it's taut. So we'd need to watch that to make sure that the guide here isn't leading the athlete.
What about this one?
And here we have somebody clearly not wearing a bike helmet. So again, yeah, fortunately, it's an older picture, but we shouldn't allow the athlete or the spectators on the course either. But the main problem here is not wearing a bike helmet.
And this last one.
And here we have obviously somebody being led by their dog and their guide. So again, something we would not allowed. So there are no guide dogs or pets full stop allowed on the field of play.
Thank you, Duncan. With this, we conclude this module. So we'll move on to the next one.
Thank you.